Hey everybody. We had a great show in the Coach's Corner last Friday about when is it time to hang it up. And this caused quite a bit of effect. A lot of people heard it. They couldn't hear the show. I got a note from an old friend of mine, Viscount Gunther out of formerly Eldemere. And he said, "Hey, I went through this and I'd love to chat about it if it would help anybody out." So I said, "Hey, yeah, let's have a chat." So let me introduce Gunther. He's an old friend of mine. We've only crossed paths a few times, but it was glorious every single time. And I always look forward to seeing him again. So it's great to have a chat.
Good to see you again, man.
Yeah, you too. So tell me, I mean, you were fighting a long time, and when we met, it was probably 15 years ago. And then at that point, I think I met you after you won your coronet tourney and were knighted. But you'd been fighting for a long time before that. When did you
Yeah.
start?
I authorized when I was 17 years old.
Mhm.
I fought up until I was about 33 or 34. I won crown or won coronet, I think around 24 years old. And I got knighted, I think it was just after that. So I'd been fighting 6, 7 years before I got knighted.
Mhm. Cool. And then, I mean, you were around for a while after that too. Did you start kind of tapering back your participation in the SCA, or was it more of like a sudden drop off? I know a lot of people that have had to hang it up. A lot of time it's because of injury, and that can be a very sudden thing.
Um, what happened is I moved out of Eldemere.
Mhm.
I moved down to Atlantia
Mhm.
and to be with my wife, my now wife. And I didn't participate a whole lot down here, but a little bit here and there. It's a very different dynamic down here, and it was fun. It was enjoyable, but I just didn't have the time, and I didn't have the contacts, and I didn't really feel like getting into it a whole bunch. But I
Mhm.
still did enjoy it, and I went to Penzic and everything.
Mhm.
Then I got injured. I got a really bad hand injury. It took me out for a while, and at that point, I pretty much knew it was over.
Okay. Yeah, because you work with your hands for a living, um,
True,
which
true.
I
I'm a
mean, a lot of
mechanic.
people do. But because I know fighters who are things like jewelers and whatnot, and they're like very careful about it. If something happens to my hands, it's over for me professionally. So
Exactly,
that
exactly.
can be a real sticker.
Yeah. Um, what happened was, I mean, I got injured. I was out of work for 8 weeks, and that
Mhm.
really hit home with me because no income. Uh, I'm supporting a family. Me and my wife and our animals and stuff, and I couldn't do it anymore. So that really kind of stuck with me, and I started thinking, am I going to go back to fighting or not? And I did. I did go back a little bit,
Mhm.
but I couldn't participate the way I wanted to because my injury hindered what I was doing, and I couldn't fight at the level that I wanted to. So it was all
Was
on
it was
me.
that mostly due to the injury, or just not being able to stay in practice enough to
Uh,
be competitor?
the injury. I fight two sword mainly,
Okay.
and it was I broke the bones up to my little pinky in my left hand,
Mm,
and I could not grasp the sword properly to throw the proper shots,
mm.
and I didn't have control of the sword. And for me, not fighting two sword is like I can't do it. I mean, that's my weapon. That's what I fight. So I was like, if I can't do it the way I want to do it, if I can't do it as good as I want to do it, then maybe I should start thinking.
Right.
And I did a
Well,
lot of
and I've
thinking.
heard a lot of that. You get people that get injured and they say, okay, well, I'm going to go to fight in just single sword, or I'm going to switch to a different weapons form, or I'm going to. They try to find a workaround, and to the people that do that and succeed, having done that myself, that it's cool when you can do that. There are times like for me, I had two different knee strains, and I'm like, I don't care what you're fighting, if your knees aren't working, you're not going to be able to do it. Like it just, so
Yeah,
some things you can work around and other things you just can't.
exactly, exactly. Um, Kind of after that, again, you mentioned knees. My knees started hurting. That was a big one that kind of added to it.
Hmm.
Started thinking about that. I haven't got the mobility. I haven't got the hands, and then asthma. My asthma started getting really bad, and with the talk with the doctor, he mentioned, he said, you got to be very careful because if you're in a high exertion, you're doing something highly exertive, and you have an asthma attack, you're starting to lose oxygen, and your oxygen levels drop too much. That is not good. That's a really bad one.
Well, and one
And
thing I remember about your fighting was that you were an athlete. I mean, there are fighters that go out there and they're really good with energy conservation, and they're real precise and accurate and very measured in how much energy they put out. And you were kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. Where I remember you were all over the place.
yep,
Uh, to me, that was such a part of your personality that changing that I think would be very, very hard to do to
yeah,
settle that, because I have a bit of that myself, in that, when I put that helmet on, I don't want to have to go out and just kind of be chill and relax and mosey on over to where the battle's going on. I'm over there to get in the mix.
oh
Um,
yeah, oh yeah. It's 100% or nothing with me. That's it. I'm either on 100% go, or I'm sitting on the sideline, gasping for air and
right.
stretching and whatever. Um, but yeah, it's all go for me.
Hmm. Well, and when multiple things start racking up, that's kind of what happened to me too. It wasn't like any one big catastrophic injury, uh, or influence that made me consider, all right, maybe it's time. It was a bunch of little ones that all seemed to be pointing to a similar direction. And
Yep,
I consider myself a lifelong martial artist, because the SCA really is a martial art. It's a very competitive
yep,
one. Although the injuries are rates are pretty low generally, it is hard on the body. You're taking extra weight. You're doing athletic stuff with the burden and encumbrance of extra weight. You're taking pretty much full contact. Um, it wears on the body. On top of, we don't have very good habits with things like warming up, with stretching, taking care of our bodies like we should.
exactly.
That adds up too. And then it becomes, and everybody gets it. Every martial arts gets this. Our artist gets this later in life as their joints start to ache. The
Yep,
the dings and whatnot start to add up. And it can be, and having met, I always liked looking forward and looking to my seniors, seeing how many people had trouble walking or had trouble getting up out of a chair because their knees were so bad. And
yep,
almost to a person, they would say, yeah, I kind of wish when I was younger I would have done it smarter. I wish I would have either taken it easy a bit more, not been such a kamikaze. I wish I would have taken care of my body a little better. All of those things. So as I started feeling those pulls towards, is this injury going to get worse, or where is it going if I continue this? And those are big considerations for me, and I think everybody goes through a certain amount of that consideration.
exactly. Your body takes a heck of a toll, and it also takes longer as you get older. It takes much longer to recover. I
Mhm.
remember fighting one day and feeling fine the next day and going out and fighting again at a fight practice when
Mhm.
I was younger. And now older is like, okay, maybe I can fight next week because this hurts.
Right.
And then like, this just isn't healing. This hurts.
Mhm.
And I love fighting. It is absolutely, it's fantastic. But the consequences of it have to weigh into what you're doing and how you're doing it. And the consequences for me became too high.
Right.
That that's when I flipped the switch and said, realistically, I don't foresee ever putting armor on again.
Mhm.
Okay. If somebody said, hey, can you do a demo? Hey, you used to do this shot and I love it. Can you teach me? Can you show me? Like, sure, sure. I'll teach whatever I can teach, but I'm not going to go out of my way to do it or to
Right.
put armor on again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And as I think about it, the SCA has actually got a pretty respectable curve. Like, you can compete for probably 10, 15 years without much of a problem.
Yep.
Now I look at other martial arts like wrestling and judo that are very, I mean, you talk about hard, they are hard on a body, to the point where, you really can't get competitive wrestling unless you're in college. And after that, there's really not much for it. And judo is somewhat similar, because the hards are so ballistic, the throws are so ballistic. You get slammed into the mat, and even though it is a slightly padded mat. It's not that padded.
Sure.
And the judo practitioners I know will do it hard, like full speed, full intensity for just a few years, and then they have to back off and take it easy. And I know a couple of judo instructors that are, in their 50s, or and they love it to death. They're still involved with it, but they can't get thrown anymore. They're
Yep.
at a point where it's just not, they're like, one more throw and I'm just going to be done. And
Sure. You could be crippled.
the
You
skin
know,
is holding the skeleton together. That's about all. Everything else
exactly.
has been bashed up so bad that
Yep.
it's not in the cards. Um,
Yep. Yep.
so what did one thing I've always loved about you is you've got such a positive attitude towards just about everything. So
Mhm.
what were your thoughts as you started to consider, well, what if I'm not going to be getting an armor anymore as I'm backing off of it? Like, what was your thought process?
Well, you have to think fighting takes up a certain amount of your time. Okay.
Mhm.
And it takes up a great deal of your time sometimes. It can become all encompassing, it can take over your life. Now, if I'm not going to be fighting anymore, I'm going to have a lot of time on my hands to do something. Um, what can I do that I've always wanted to do that I couldn't do because I had to go to a fight practice, or I had to go to this tournament because people kind of expected me to go, or they wanted to see me? And now it kind of opened up. I looked at it as a positive, the next step, some like a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I'm ending my fighting, and now I'm going to begin something else.
Mhm.
And I begin riding my motorcycle more. I begin building hot rods. I begin uh, dealing with my horses and stuff. Much, much, much more. And
Right.
dealing with different animals, and going and seeing other friends, and dealing with more family. It's not. I didn't look at it as a stop. I look at it as a beginning,
Mm,
a
sure.
new beginning.
Yeah, because we never make time, right? We only allot time to what we want to do. Now,
Sure.
was the stuff that you did it check enough of the boxes of the things that you were doing with your in fighting, or did you feel like some of those boxes just never got checked again, and there was part of it you missed?
There are a few boxes that are not getting checked, and
Mhm.
fighting is an adrenaline rush. There is
Oh yeah.
no doubt. It is the huge rush, and it is addictive. Okay,
Mhm.
it is as addictive as alcohol, cigarettes, gambling. It is. It really is.
Mhm.
And breaking that addiction. Okay, you never get over it. You always want that addiction, but you can stop it. You can control it. You can uh, change direction. You can do other things. No, I don't get the adrenaline rush from fighting that I do from riding my motorcycles, but it's close. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm out in the road, I'm, out in the open air, and
Sure.
that is a bit of an adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
Riding horses, I mean, same thing. You're on a 1,200-pound animal.
Yeah.
It could
And both of
potentially
them you can
fall
get
you and
hurt.
kill
So
you, you know? So a lot of the things I was doing did check a lot of boxes. I still miss all my friends. There's no doubt about that. I don't see very many of them anymore.
Mhm.
Um, I don't get the adrenaline rush, but other than that, not really. I don't really miss a whole lot of it. You
Mhm.
know, I I let it go behind and move forward.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know,
At the end, I guess when I sort of transitioned, there was some crossover because I was looking for something that would check a lot of those boxes, and taking up martial arts again was one that checked almost all of them. And one of the ones that had been looking for a long time, which is like Aikido, and I found a good instructor in a good school, and I was able to bring in many of my interests from the SCA within that. It is a martial art. It has, you're working against a live partner. In this case, not an opponent as much as an attacker, or you're trying to work on technique. Um, but I found the joy of, okay, try to take my head off, and then I would put a stop to that. Like that. That's one of those boxes that was very much checked with SCA fighting, that translated. And it was cool that we had that Aikido has, multiple attackers on one. Um, they call that randori. And of course, with that SCA fighting, that takes me right to the melee field where, facing multiple people is, that was a gas. Loved it.
oh
Um,
yeah,
so in fact, in going into that, what I found is my passion for the SCA, I actually helped me develop my Aikido more in helping train others to face multiple opponents with a deeper level of um, I don't know if you want to call it skill, but ability to teach people how to understand multiple attackers and what to do about it.
Sure.
Because I mean the SCA does a great job of, well, it allows you the venue to explore becoming good at that. If
Yes.
you can get your ass kicked for years having never figured out how to deal with multiple people, but it has that kind of the safety stops removed for the most part.
Yeah.
Um, which is great. I actually like that part about it. It's not like a drill or an exercise. It's go time. Um, so which is, to me that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, it is checking the boxes though, is figuring out, okay, what part does this fill and what does it not. One of the things that I liked about Aikido is when I picked it up, there were not politics was not really a thing, and that was refreshing to me,
Yeah.
because one of the indicators of, okay, maybe I don't want to do this anymore, was kind of the political thing. It just got, and you having sat a throne and been a knight, I'm sure you
Oh,
know
yeah.
exactly the same thing. It's and for those who are not a member of the chivalry or a peer or a royal peer, you may not appreciate that as much as you can say, okay, I'm just not going to deal with that. It finds you. It
It
will
finds
hunt
you
you down
have
and nag at your heels like a dog nipping at your feet
Yep. You must deal
constantly.
with it. You
And
must.
and at least being a knight, and I think most peers feel this way, regardless of which order they're in, is when they're called by somebody that is suffering, you don't want to just say get lost. You want to say, all
Exactly.
right, I'm going to try to help you. So
Sure.
it's not an
Sure.
easy thing just to shut off the politics switch, because it's nearly constant. um,
Yes. Yes. You are a beacon of hope. You're this beacon that people look up to you and you're like,
yeah,
I just fight. Like,
yeah, and you never want
I
to
just,
let them down.
yeah,
That's
yeah, we don't, because,
yeah.
we're all good people and we want to help, but,
Mm-hmm.
you become this beacon shining light of, you should know everything and you're a peer. You should know. I'm like, I swing a stick, man. That's it. Like that. I just
Right.
got good at that. I don't know all the answers,
Yep. Yeah, and
but
and
I'm
you don't
trying.
want to give them the feeling like they're being a nuisance or being a pest, when in fact they
Exactly.
might be. You never know, or it might be a legitimate problem that they need somebody's help that has some authority or the ability to come in and say, all right, everybody chill out, we got to sort this business out. but
Sure, sure.
but that role is a burden. It does wear on you.
It is, and um, if you can help in that situation, you do, and people will
Mm-hmm.
listen to you because you got the big belt on and because you got the lid on, and people will kind of calm down and they'll start thinking straight. If there's any kind of situation, you can quell a situation very easily. I actually did one at war.
Mm-hmm.
There was a confrontation going on at war, and I just walked in and I said, "This is done. This is done." Okay, and it was three guys. Uh, Kind of, they weren't beating up on the guy, but they're shoving him around, and they took his glasses and they were just bullying him. I just walked up and I said, this is done. Give me the glasses. You guys go this way. And I gave the guy his stuff back, and I said, "Where's your camp?" And I walked him back to his camp.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." I said, "We're cool. We're cool. Just, I'm glad I could help. Don't put yourself in whatever situation you were in.
Sure.
Don't walk alone. There's
Mm-hmm.
people out here, and you know, and I felt good doing it. And he felt like, I guess maybe he felt better about chivalry. He felt more better about,
Mm-hmm.
hey, there's people out there that do care. I don't know, but there's the politics, there's the burden, there's the shining beacon of light. And okay, yeah, I can't just walk away. Doesn't work like that.
Well, and
Shield
those the
shield
kind of
and
the
defeat.
drive-by assistance, those to me never bothered me much. But boy, there are some people that seem to make their living within the SCA of just being a nuisance, an ongoing, constant problem. And boy, I wonder if they get any sleep, but because they're just like are relentless about causing turmoil, and there's always some kind of drama going on, and when it's small, you can ignore it until you
Yeah,
get like a semi-pro or a pro, and then the drama becomes like it just sweeps a whole region almost.
yeah,
And you know, And I can see like, okay, well, you need a peer, a royal peer, or somebody with some clout to go, deal with it. And a lot of people just say, I don't want to. And then, you're the last one standing that says, okay, well, guess what? I'm not going to
I'll,
be, yeah, exactly. It's got to be done. So
it's
let's
got to
get
be
her
done. I'll do that. Sure.
done. you know,
Sure.
um, and sadly, sometimes what you do doesn't help. And that can be frustrating too. But, and I've known many people that have quit, not because of injuries, but because of the political side stuff. So, I mean, following up on our episode last Friday, the title was "The Elephant in the Room," and that's the politics really are one of the big elephants in the room of
Sure. Sure.
of of wearing people out of the SCA and getting them frustrated,
Yep.
and not wanting
Yep.
to come back.
Yep. There was a point I've been frustrated and been like, I don't want to go back to this. It's too much of a pain in the neck. People just getting on me about, I need this and I want that and I want it. And a lot of it, believe it or not, was being
Yeah.
royalty.
Hmm.
You get phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning. My boyfriend just left me. I'm like, huh? It doesn't really have anything to do with, okay, hi, yes, hi, okay. What can I do? You want to just talk? Okay. And you got to be the nice guy and you got to do it. But
Yeah.
yeah, there are other reasons for quitting fighting. There are other reasons for quitting
Mhm.
the SBA, and
Yeah.
it's a choice. Hopefully, it's a choice that you make, and it's not something that you're pushed into or pushed out of the
Right.
SCA.
Hmm.
It makes it a much easier transition.
Yeah.
And if somebody said, "Am I out of the SCA?" I would say, "No, I'm not out of it." Okay, I
Hmm.
haven't I haven't decided to say, "Screw it, I'll never go back again. I hate this. This is terrible. Everyone stay away." I'm not doing that. It's just I don't participate, and I don't foresee participating because currently there's really not a lot in it for me. I don't
Hmm.
fight. I don't drink. I don't party. I don't. I've been married for 20 years. I'm not going out. Running around after women. So and I've done the arts and science stuff, and there's not a whole lot left in it for me other than my friends. And I'd rather talk to my friends as we're talking now,
Hmm.
or go meet somewhere at a restaurant or a hotel or a lobby or and just talk to them or wherever. I'd almost
Yeah.
rather do that,
Hmm. Yeah, you
because it's
described that really well, and I put myself kind of in that same category, and I've done that. I've gone to only a few events over the last, I don't know, 10 years. Most of it's like, oh, your housemate's getting their peerage, and they would like to have you
sure,
there, or something of that nature. So I'd never count myself out, but just like you, the attraction is, either I'd have to drive for 12 hours each way, which, when I was in my 20s, that was no big deal. Now in
sure.
my 50s, it's a bigger deal.
Oh yeah,
Versus, okay. And I remember scheduling your life around, okay, what's the next event you're going to go to, where you do, a couple of events a month, and you kind of arrange your travel schedule. And that's a big shift of
yep,
taking that into that focus of, well, maybe you go one event this year, maybe, but you're not even thinking about it. It's like, oh, there's one coming up, and somebody says, hey, you should come, and you're like, well, it's close by, maybe I will. Where's my stuff again? Like, where? I don't even know where my clothes are, my
yeah.
garb is, or anything.
Most of my stuff probably doesn't even fit me anymore. I don't even know if I could put anything together to go to an SA event.
Exactly.
I
And
could
one of
make a
the,
doobie with the towels and the pins and the belt.
yeah, look like those old time laurels. Uh, but I remember too, I always felt just, and this was just me personally, like, if I'm going to be a knight, my armor should be ready to go at any time. And I remember over 20 plus years, my armor was never not ready to be fought in
Yep.
for more than 4 or 5 days. I, replaced straps, replaced rivets,
Yep.
whatever needed to be done. Like that was, it's like, I was like a minute man. Like I didn't even be ready to get my armor on and go at any time. And
Exactly.
that was a big change when it was like, oh, the armor's in the bag and it's been sitting there and it's got a busted strap, but I don't really need it. Uh, it, it
Yeah.
it takes a lot to change, how you think. It took a while for me to kind of even become comfortable with that. Uh,
Yeah. Yep.
so
I went out and looked at my armor not too long ago. I pulled it out of the bag and somebody asked me about a basket hilt. So I went and got my swords and put them back in my hands. And I'm like, it just doesn't feel the same. You
Right.
know, that sword used to be part of me. The swords were part of me.
Hmm.
Um, we would talk back and forth. They would dance in my hands,
Hmm.
and now they don't feel the same. And be it that I'm out of practice or that I just don't have the passion for it anymore. You
Yeah.
know, the passion to go out and throw on the heavy, sweaty, stinky armor and get all exhausted and get the tar beat out of me. And
Yep.
I don't know which one it is, but it is what it is, and I
Hmm.
accept it. It's okay. It's
Yep.
okay to not want to do this anymore.
Sure.
You
Well, and
know,
I think it's also okay to realize that you look back, you had your time, you had a great time. A lot of, like, I think a lot of people look back at their college days, or they say, I was young, I was stupid, I was exuberant, I did these ridiculous things. It was a blast. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I can't live like that again. I could not go back to do that now,
yeah,
you
yep,
know.
yep.
Um,
I'm kind of exactly the same. I did some amazing things. I've done some absolutely amazing things on the field,
mhm.
things that people couldn't even imagine. Mundane people can't. I can't even explain it to them. I've told them I've led armies into battles, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Nobody does that." I'm like, "No, I've done it. Okay,
Mhm.
I ran down a bridge with an army of uh, two chucks, but an
Mhm.
army of barbarians running at me, and it was the greatest thing ever."
Yeah.
And I loved it, but I don't want to do it anymore.
Mhm.
That was scary, and I didn't have any fear back then.
Yep.
Now I do. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I don't want to run down a bridge with 42 chucks running at me. That sucked.
In retrospect, yeah.
It did. It
At
did.
the
It was
time, it
not the
was
smart thing to
exhilarating,
do.
but now it'd be like, ooh.
If somebody else want to go, anyone else,
Exactly.
and
So,
there's younger kids that want to do that. Hey, you know what? Go
mhm.
for it. I know how much fun I had, and you can have all that fun.
Yeah,
Knock yourself
absolutely.
out.
Yeah, and
So
I think that there are many roles for a veteran knight or a veteran royal peer, veteran fighter, to not have to go out and prove themselves in the front line like when we were young. And I'm sure everybody who's listening to this, you're currently young and you feel the juice and you want to get right into that front line and pound through, or fight in every tournament, and just to anybody who is in that age, I'd say go for it. Like, do it,
absolutely.
because it will reward you even when you come back bruised and banged up and you wondered, what was I thinking?
Yep.
We've done it. We've done that, and it's every bit as glorious as doing something spectacular.
It
Um,
is. It is the most glorious feeling, coming back and being exhausted and sweaty. I mean,
mhm.
man, I did something amazing that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You
And all
know,
day you've got people coming, I can't believe you did that.
I saw you do this on the
Regardless of
field.
how it came out, even if it was ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah. Ridiculous is kind of, my motto on the field.
Yeah.
If you're going to do something, do it big, do it stupid, do it loud, make a
Hmm.
scene,
Yeah.
and enjoy it.
Yeah. Because those are the things you really remember. Um, and whether it's
Always
the
hark
stupid.
back to it. Our little, which fight
Oh yeah.
the fire room brawl where we just sat there.
Yep. Yep. We
If you're
pulled
going to
out
do
those
it,
chairs. That was hilarious. Um, but it is the crazy antics, and I think of anybody that and hopefully the SCA is not evolved into being so serious that people who are thinking, you know what, I need to go do something just ridiculous and stupid to entertain people, aren't thinking, well, I better not do that, or that's not seemly, just
yeah,
because that, in my opinion, was part of the magic of the SCA is seeing people do their inspired stupidity, really, um,
exactly,
and
exactly.
to be part of it, not just be an observer, you know, uh,
Yeah,
an
yeah,
audience member. It
yeah,
was everybody kind of contributing to being something more than just the average, like a costume party where everybody's just walking around in a costume and that's it. Um,
yeah, yeah. I always try to get people to. I'm like, hey, let's go do this. This is dumb. Okay, we're gonna do this on the field. It's really dumb. We're probably gonna die. Like I used to charge the bridge every year. First bridge battle, I'd say, everybody, let's go. We're gonna die. You're gonna die in the battle anyway. You might as well have some fun. Okay, so let's go. Let's Hail Mary down this thing. We can waste two or three people and let's go and have some fun.
yeah.
And I'd always bring my squires or anybody else that wanted to come along. and they had a blast. They're like, "Oh my God, that was so great. It's the best thing ever."
Yep.
Okay, do it next year when I'm not here. You don't have to have me to tell you to do it. Do it.
Remember what this feels like, because you can go do it again.
Yes, you can. Yes, you
That's
can.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I in hearing the on our episode on Friday, and even from the notes and stuff that we've seen in comments about the people that struggle with the loss, and I think it is a grieving process where it's okay to go through a time when you say, all right, I feel the separation, I feel the loss, remember what you did, but don't dwell on the negative part, dwell on the positive part. And I like how you described about finding a substitute of something else that you can channel your passion into.
Hmm.
I think that's good advice.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, you mentioned grieving. I kind of, believe it or not, went through much of, and I tell people this: if you're gonna stop fighting, your fighting career is dead. When something dies, you must grieve. And there's I call it the 4 steps of grieving. There's 5, 6, 7, whatever.
Mhm.
But the 4 steps of grieving, okay? You go through it. And when you go through it, you come out the other end and you're better for it. Okay. You say, why, what, I'm not going to stop fighting, but I have to, but I don't want to, but I have to. And then, why is it me? Why me? Why do I have to be the one that has to stop? Why did I have to get this injury? Why did I have to get forced out of the SCA? Whatever.
Mhm.
And then you said, the bargaining. Oh, maybe I'll just go back and fight a little bit here, or maybe I'll fight a little bit there. Like, no, it doesn't work. Doesn't work. And then you accept it and you go, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. I did something amazing. It's in my head. I remember it. I'll never forget it for my life. And I can move on and I can do something else amazing somewhere else in some other venue.
Mhm.
And that's how you look at it. That's how you have to look at it.
Sure. Well, and I think there are people too out there who, you know, they fight to a high level, and I think you and I were both in this where we could go back and we could kind of play around, because there are fighters that go and they just like to get in their armor and be able to go and spar some or fight a battle or two, but they're not really worried about how well they do. Or to me, that was a separation point. Like you, 100% or nothing. It was going to be, if I'm going to go watch myself just be below average or below adequate, I'd rather not do it at all. Um,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
and I don't mind if I'm not at my own 100%, but it's to be at like 50%. I knew that would just grind my gears emotionally too much to do that. But on the upside, one thing I found out years ago is I love training people. I love helping them
Mhm.
learn. I love sharing in the light bulb moments when they find
Yep.
something they didn't think they could do, and they show themselves they can do it. Like, I love that part. And so that helped me shift quite a bit of my passion for fighting towards doing that. And
Hmm.
and I was not such a competitor that all I wanted to do was go win fights. I liked helping others even more than I liked finding success myself. And I realize, I'm not saying there's no judgment about people that did like to compete and that was all they wanted to do. Uh, it's just, you have to know yourself to know whether can you switch that competitive
Hmm.
aspect of your personality into something else. And if you can, that's cool, you can do that. But if you can't, that's okay too. Just find something else that you can go do that with, whether it's, and if you're a competitor, there's a lot of things you can compete at that does not need to be physically damaging to your body.
Yes, there
The
is.
competitive mind is its own thing. Um, I've seen people compete at chess with more vigor than I've seen most FCA fighters compete.
Sure. Sure.
And there's many venues. I mean, with all the sports, especially the new stuff that didn't even exist 20 years ago in terms of sporting activity, you can compete on almost any level you can imagine. Um, and it's kind of, I do find it kind of funny when I run into people that are that competitive and everything they do is focused on, can I win this? And
Yeah.
no matter how ridiculous it is, it's like, can I stack toothpicks more than you can, or better than, higher than you, whatever.
Yeah.
Can I eat a bigger steak than you can? It just it never stops. And I think for those people that there will probably always be, they'll probably be doing who can race each other the fastest in their wheelchairs in the nursing home. When they get into their senior years.
Yeah, that'll be
Um,
me. That'll be me, just because it'll be fun. And Steve,
that's
it'll
right.
be something really dumb. So that'll
Yeah,
be me.
that's right. We'll probably be both racing for the elevator and next to each other in our wheelchairs. Um, oh, that's hilarious. But like I mentioned on the show, for me, to me the fighting was like a moving meditation. That helped calm me down, and that's why the my aikido kind of took that over, because I could have that martial flavor, still move my body, and God willing, my body's it's still in good enough shape I can keep going, which I fear had I not stopped SCA fighting, I would have gotten so bad that right now I would not be doing any martial art. Um,
Sure,
and
sure,
so yeah, you had to look kind of a medium and a longer term goal than just, what can I get in the next 6 months or a year of,
sure.
keeping
Because
the habit going.
that next 6 months could take a lot out of what you would be doing next. If, like you said, if you wanted to go and start doing the keto, if
Mhm.
you fought 6 months longer and got much more injuries, you may not be able to enjoy what you're enjoying now. I mean,
Right.
you don't know. There's no way of knowing.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, you can go, wow, I could have gotten hurt, or I could have, I'm not as fast, or I'm not as agile, or
Mhm.
whatever. And I could have done something wrong and not been where I am now.
Right.
So it's a lot of hindsight stuff. And I guess we're lucky. I would use the word lucky that we can see maybe we got out at the right time,
Hmm.
that we can still enjoy other things. Um, so some people are just bound and determined to stay in it no matter what. I'm going to keep fighting and I'm going to do this. And it's like, okay, I mean, your decision, you go for it. But
Yep.
remember, there's always consequences. And the older you get, the narrower the window for catastrophe
Right.
is,
Well,
you
and
know?
I think there's no real magic. There's no answer really. Everybody's answer has to fit themselves, but uh, it's the consideration part. I think that it's kind of a formula that way. You figure out, all right, in my particular circumstance, how long should I keep doing this? And I think that's why the show hit such a nerve with so many people that are in the midst of this consideration, or they can see it coming, or you know they're they've already been told by their doctor, hey buddy, you know you keep doing this could be it for you. And
Yeah, yeah.
going through the what it takes to do that shift.
I I I saw a little bit of the show. I mean, I couldn't stay the whole thing, but I saw a little bit of it.
Mhm.
And one of the things that stuck in my mind was one of the gentlemen that was talking. I'm sorry, I don't know who it was. Um, I think he mentioned he had a neck injury or something like
Mhm.
that, and the doctor said if he got hit in the head one more time, it could paralyze him. I
Mhm.
think that's what, something like that.
Yep. Yep.
And he was going through a lot of depression because of it.
Mhm.
And I understand what he's feeling, and I wish I could tell him and say, look, you've been given a gift. You've been given a gift by a doctor to
Mhm.
say, stop now or you're going to get hurt. Don't look at it as you have to stop or you're going to get hurt or I'm going to slap you on the wrist and it's a bad.
Mhm.
You've been given the signal. You've been given a sign that says, stop now and you can have a great rest of your life. You
Mhm.
can do more things. So you mentioned about being positive and thinking positive about stuff at the beginning.
Mhm.
That's how you have to look at things.
Mhm.
When somebody says something, you can't fight anymore. If you take a shot in the shoulder, you're gonna lose use of your arm, or you're gonna have tingling arm, or you're gonna have broken bones, or whatever. This and that. And they're like, okay, you know what? Somebody just told me something that I didn't see or that I didn't realize. Because like I know,
Mhm.
you can look at something for 20 years and not realize, and all of a sudden go, why the hell did I see that? That's dumb. I should have seen this 20 years ago.
Right.
You know, regardless of what it is. But yes, you have to look at what you're being told and look at the situation and go, you know what, maybe it's a positive as opposed to a
Absolutely.
negative. You
Yeah,
know,
you get
don't be
a
depressed about it. Be grateful that you were given a sign or a clue or a something.
right. Yeah, because
Yeah,
every bit of bad news can be good news too. That silver lining.
yep,
Part.
yep.
Um,
That's how I try and look at it.
Yeah.
Um, it's a sign, it's a silver lining, it's a whatever. Just listen to it, and and listen to your body, and listen to everything around you, and do what's right.
Yeah.
Do what's right for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like you, I miss my friends. I wish we were closer.
Sure.
A lot of my close friends that are here in the cities have moved off in other parts of the country, even other parts of the world, and you always miss that. And I know people that they pine for the glory days, and when they go back, maybe because they are physically not in that place anymore, they go back physically only to find that that time that they had, it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
Like they want to turn back the clock when they think I can just go back to the same place and it will be the same, and it's not. And
It's
there is
it's
a
like an old
certain amount
girlfriend.
of
It's like an old girlfriend. You want to
acceptance.
go back to your old girlfriend because, oh, she was great. We had a great time, but we broke up. Go back to your old girlfriend and go, oh, heck no. Heck no. No, 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 no,
Yeah,
no.
I mean, or you go to a restaurant that you used to go to when you were a kid and it was fantastic, and you go there and like, what is this?
This is terrible. What was I thinking? Well, I had a different
And
set
I
of
guess,
glasses on then.
yeah, to take a page from your book of the positive, I realized that, as you grow older, you realize everything that I expect the world is, because it was always that way, is not always that way. But what you can do is appreciate that you were in that place at that time, and it was what it was, and it was great because you were there. Like you got that, you were in that world.
Mhm.
And I would view Penzic, the golden age of Penzic was around 20, roughly. Penzic
Sure.
19,
Sure. Yeah,
24, cabbage ball. I think you played cabbage ball with us, didn't you?
I did.
Stuff
Oh
like
my
that.
God. That was so much fun.
It was, I wouldn't have missed that for the world. Like I think it
No.
was one of the greatest things in the SCA that ever happened. But
Oh, yeah.
there's been so many of those instances where I know I can't go back. You're not gonna, all you can do is make new memories.
Sure.
Can't go
Sure.
back and try to relive old ones.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so
Yeah. I can't go back and be the same person I was, mainly because, I'm not the same person I was, but there's also different people around.
right.
You don't have the same dynamic with the same friends.
Mhm.
The SCA generation, I think they said, is like a generation is 2 years or 3 years or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard
They
that.
consider it. Well, being in the SCA for 30 years, that's through 10 generations of people. Like, I'm sure there's people who have no idea
Hmm.
who I am up in Eldermere,
Hmm.
even though I, I have been called, and this is not me saying it, an icon or a legend. Okay. And legend because of the dumb crap that I've done, not because some great stuff, but some of the dumb crap. Okay.
Sure.
And they have no idea. And if I tried to walk into that situation and go, hey, it's me, Gunther, I did all this stuff. And they're like, who's this old guy? You know, who's this guy think he is? And I
Yeah.
would be like, oh, I used to be somebody. I guess I'm not now.
Yeah.
And I would feel crap about it, and I wouldn't want to do that. That'd just be a dumb thing to do. But you know, kind of coming back around to it is you have the memories, you have the things that you did, and live in your head, and that's great. Don't try and go back and do it again. Don't try and be the same person you were. Don't try and one of the greatest fighters I've ever seen is Sir Bronis. Okay,
Mhm.
the man is a machine on the field,
Mhm.
and I know he's going through some shoulder stuff. Or he was going through
Oh,
something
he
with the
is. Yeah.
shoulder,
Hmm.
and really I would love to see him face to face and say, please, please don't hurt yourself to try and be as great as you are for other people, because other people want you to be Bronis the Great, Duke Bronis the Amazing.
Hmm.
Okay. Don't let them pressure you into pushing it further to that you're going to hurt yourself so bad. It's not worth it. You were great. You are great. You always be great.
Hmm.
Don't let anyone undo that. Don't let anyone push you further. Stop when you want to stop.
Yeah. There's
And
nothing more to prove. I mean,
nothing. That man has zero to prove. Zero.
and especially as we've shifted in, and when I started this whole coach's corner thing, Bronis and Sean were the two of them at the top of my list. Like, these two guys are training people. They have so much to contribute, and at the time I didn't realize that he had started going through his shoulder stuff, or that it was as bad as it was. But he, without having a well-functioning shoulder or being able to pick up a rattan stick and fight, there's still a ton that he can contribute to the SCA, and we're doing that through an alternative channel. So
Yep.
I know that from what he's explained, and I've felt the same way too, that there's competing does give you a venue for checking certain boxes that training doesn't. And
Exactly.
although I get it, and he's got a different personality than I do. I really enjoy teaching people even more than I like competing, and I think he likes competing a little bit more, from what he's told me. But not to presume or anything, but that's where this is such a personal level of decision of all the factors involved.
Yeah.
And we don't have any judgment about how somebody makes a decision or what they decide to do. It's not easy. And I think I like having the show that we had last Friday, and even this discussion, and it sounds like there may be others coming, or people sharing their consideration, because it is a very personal thing. And
Mhm.
you probably will not find out as much about yourself throughout your whole life as you will when you start to examine giving up, something like this that is such a deep part of you. Um,
Sure.
you know,
Sure. Well, I mean, we're not quitters. We don't
no,
quit. We
right.
we we get into it, and we will sacrifice our body, our time, our loved ones. We will sacrifice everything to perfect our craft, and and we don't want to quit. And when we feel like we quit, we feel like we've lost, and we don't lose. We don't like losing. I mean,
Yeah,
that's why we fight, is to win, obviously.
right.
But everyone I've met who's really at the top of their game and everything wants to win, wants to do it. They don't want to lose, and they don't want to quit. They want to keep it going.
Yep.
And it's a real kick when you realize maybe I can't do this anymore.
Well, and even with those people that were, because I think when I've seen competitors, there's the people that like competing and winning tournaments, and then there's people that like to compete because they're going to do better than they did last time, and that's where they're dedicated to. That's kind of was my main motivator. Like, I'm going to be better next week than I was last week. And then you realize that I just get to the top rung is the only place I can go, because I can't keep going up. I'm now going to be going down. And
Yep.
I think that's as uh, emotionally burdensome as, oh, well, I'm just not as good, or I'm not going to win tournaments because, there's younger up and coming, very strong fighters that are no longer, uh, I'm not going to be able to beat them. And
Sure.
and I think either one is stressful, because you're so focused on improvement, on being your absolute best, and then you watch yourself not be. And I found that was very difficult. My last Penzic, I was a bit more out of shape than I wanted to be, and I was very disappointed in myself when I was done with it. I was like, this is not the performance that I expect, or that I've ever seen of myself, and I had to really look at, okay, do I want to do what it takes to keep going? And then it was all right, well, how does my body feel about that? What am I going to be in a couple of years if I keep pushing this?
Yep.
On top of the miles I got to put on the car, and traveling, because it's not just go to practice at your local practice. It's to be at that level. There's a lot to it.
You have to do a lot of traveling and 4 or 5 practices a week in different cities. And,
Mhm,
you know, the tournaments keep you very sharp and focused.
mhm,
Uh, more than the practices. Practices help you with endurance and strength and technique.
mhm.
And the tournaments, they keep you really razor focused on, what you
Where
have
you
to
put
do.
all that together.
Right.
No.
And, that's a huge commitment to, like you said, financial, and putting on your car, time away from your family,
Mhm.
everything. And you have to make that realization and say, is it worth it anymore? What am I fighting for? What am I fighting for? Why am I doing this
Mhm.
still? And if you can't look yourself in the eye and say, to be better than I was yesterday, or to help somebody or something like that, you need to reevaluate.
Yeah.
And
And it,
it's okay to reevaluate.
absolutely. And it comes down to that cost benefit. Like, okay, what's the cost going to be to keep doing that? Whether it's monetary, and your time, because those are both real life considerations that are huge.
Sure.
Or it's the investment of your body. Like, are you going to keep running this race car right down to the rims, or how's it gonna go? So it's not easy. I think anybody that would say, yeah, it's pretty straightforward would be lying. I mean, it just flat out, it's not. Um, and there's going to be some pretty heavy emotional downside to the process until you get it solved, until you realize, okay, here's how here's my plan, and here's what I'm going to shift to, and you're going to have to shift there. And having watched people give up smoking, I've seen them go through the same thing. It's rough for a while. Some can't do it, but others will go through a rough patch, and they'll figure, you know what, I'm doing this for the better, and that's what makes this rough patch worthwhile, and they succeed. So
Um, I can 100%, I agree with it, and I've lived it. I quit drinking 10 years ago. Okay. And there's a lot of things you gotta figure out. What am I going to do when I'm not drinking?
right.
Where's my money going to go when I'm not spending it on alcohol? The hardest one for me was, how do I fall asleep?
Mm,
Believe it or not, that was a weird one. How do
yeah.
I fall asleep? Just
Mhm.
sober people fall asleep. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it's quitting it and learning something different, and knowing that at the end of a road, however long it is, it will be better.
Mm,
But you're going to go through a lot of things, a lot of emotions. And as men, we're not supposed to talk about emotions. We're not supposed to feel bad, and we got to be strong and all.
yeah.
You're going to go through a lot of stuff that's going to break you, you know, from quitting whatever, quitting drinking, quitting smoking, quitting gambling, quitting fighting,
Mhm.
quitting any addictive, which fighting is addictive,
Mhm.
quitting anything that's addictive. You're going to go through a lot before you get to a good place. Now, hopefully, that's a short road.
Mhm.
Hopefully. And if you can get your head in the right place, you can make it a short road, and it will always be better in the end.
And I think a certain amount of mental flexibility is needed to shorten that time. The more stubborn you are, the harder and longer it's going to be to get through it. Um,
Exactly.
and that's the
It's
nice
exactly.
part, because as you have fought for years and years, you learn to become mentally flexible. Like, how do I need to change to get better? And you can use that process of, okay, now how do I need to change in order to have a life that I want to have, that does not include me having my body, racked up, or
Yep.
whatever the influences are that are causing you to question whether it's time for you to stop.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's I mentioned the grieving process about your fighting career dying. Um, the first one is the hardest one, the denial.
Mhm.
Okay. Denial is the toughest one. No, I don't need to stop. I'm stronger than this. No, you're not. You may not be. And don't be afraid to say, I can't do it anymore. Like that's a hard one to say, is I can't. Okay. Um, I can't fight like I used to. I can't recover like I used to. I can't do this anymore, because as fighters, as high end fighters, we find a way. That's
Right.
part of that's part of what we do on the field. How am I going to beat
I'm
this
glad
guy?
you brought that up, because one thing that I think quitting smoking, and granted, I've never had to quit smoking or had alcoholism or gambling problems or anything like that. But the one thing about stopping fighting, especially being a knight, is to say it's my duty. It's not just that I want to fight, it's my duty to go fight, and to have to overcome that part, which just heaps on the denial. It's, in fact, it's a conduit for denial to say I
It
shouldn't
is.
stop, because it's my duty to go be foremost in battle, and to be, a knight of my crown and my kingdom, et cetera, et cetera. Um, that was probably one of the hardest factors that I dealt with, which was I felt it was my duty. Um,
Sure.
I
Sure. I
mean, it
took
was
an
in me
oath.
from the very first day I went to a SCA meeting at my local chapter, and I find out that there's armored fighting and knights, and that was it. I was in. That's all I needed to hear.
Yep.
So, you know, when that
Yep.
switch starts to turn off, or you have to turn it off, you're compelled to turn it off, and you don't want to because, like, that's what I promised to do when I was elevated.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I took my oath very, very seriously.
mhm,
You know, foremost in battle,
mhm,
shield of the weak, all that stuff.
yeah,
And now you're like, I can't do what I said I was going to do. And you kind of feel bad about it. It's like, well, wait a minute. Other people have gone through this too. Maybe it's okay to not be able to do all the time, all the time, what you promised to do.
right.
Okay. I mean, if the situation came down to it and I had to do something for my kingdom, my king called me and says, you have to do this, you have to do,
Mhm,
okay, I'll see what I can do, but I can't do that anymore like that. And, it's just not going to happen. There's
right.
somebody younger. Let them do it. Let them do it. Let them have the fun. Let them do it. Let them,
Yeah,
I'll, I'll tell them what to do or how to do it, but let them do it.
right. Again, there's your time, and in the time, when we were young and fit, and that we were all those things, but as you age, you're just not even physically capable to do it. You know,
Right. Right.
or you face that dilemma of what happens when I'm not physically capable to do this, and
I think one of the big questions is knowing when you're not physically capable of doing it,
mhm,
because people, a lot of people I've seen, they push it too far. Okay. And they really get themselves hurt doing things. And it's like, you have to self-evaluate. And whether it's at 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, okay, you have to self-evaluate and go, you know what? I can't do this. It's too much. Okay. This there's a statement I made years ago, and a lot of people got really mad about it. And I said, but it's true though. I said the SCA isn't real. Okay. The SCA is a hobby. It's not real life. Your bank doesn't care that you got your leg broken
mhm,
fighting. They want their mortgage money.
mhm,
Okay. The, the SCA isn't a real thing. Your family is real. Your duty to your family is real. Your bills that come in are real. You can't stop your life. You can stop the SCA. So you have to look at it like, what can I do in this game that we're playing that's not going to destroy my real life?
that's
And
true.
you need to evaluate it. And because we're talking fighting, it's mainly physical.
Mhm,
Um, it's mainly physical. There is, like you mentioned, the politics of it, but it's mainly physical. And we all have to work. We all have to earn money for our home and our family.
mhm,
And when the SCA takes that away from you, when fighting takes that away from you, as it did with me, with my hand getting broken, that's the point you have to go. It's not worth it
mhm,
for something that's not real.
mhm,
Now, all the emotions are real, the friends are real, the combat is real, all that stuff is real because we've done it, we've experienced it. But it's it can be stopped. It's something that's not it's not really there.
right.
It's hard
Well, it
to
takes a
explain.
backseat to real responsibility. And,
Right,
and
right,
I've met people that their mundane life is tumultuous because they spend all their money on SCA stuff and they can barely pay their bills.
sure,
So,
sure,
there's an economic factor, there's a family factor when, you know, you're trying to take the family, or you're away from your family because they don't want to do the SCA, and you go off and do your thing, and then, there's that stress, I think. So, yeah, there's a lot going on with it that, again, it's a cost benefit.
yep, yep,
So, having met a number of people that say I had to get out of it just because I couldn't afford it, and I wanted to spend my money on my family, and you know bless them for having a attitude with perspective, true life perspective.
sure, sure.
Um,
Hey, this was good, but you know what? It could do some damage. It could do
right.
some damage to my family or to
Mhm.
you know to my friends, family, my health, whatever.
Right.
And I can, I can get out of this, and good for them. Good for them. Not that I don't want to sound like getting out of the SCA is a bad thing, because it's not.
Right.
Okay. The SCA is a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful venue for friends and for camaraderie and for all kinds of things. But um, it needs to be regulated like anything, self-regulated
Mhm.
like anything. Like, again, alcohol, gambling, cigarettes.
Yeah, you can kind of
Whatever.
OD on it, and
You absolutely can, absolutely can. That never goes well with anything,
yeah.
you know.
Well, and I suppose
So
it's kind of a similar curve, when people are young and they get into their cups, they like their drinking, they can put down a bottle of liquor and keep partying, and then when they grow older, one a drink, after dinner before they go to bed is plenty. That's all they need. They aren't downing a bottle, you know.
yeah,
If
yeah, you don't need that. You
you
don't need
don't
it.
you
You
don't
don't
need
want
it, and
it.
your body can't handle it. So,
Sure.
you know,
Absolutely.
we shift as we age in many ways. So,
Yep.
um,
Yep. Yep.
well, cool. This was a great chat. I think this could help, a lot of people that are going through this, and I
Yep.
think there's a lot, judging by the number of participants, in our era, it, there has to be a lot of people that have either gone through it, just gone through it, or are going through it, or about to go through it, that could use some good perspective. So I appreciate you
Yep.
sharing it.
Hey, anything I could do or say to help people, I'm there to do it. It's not a bad thing. That's the thing I want to tell people. Quitting something is not a bad thing. You
Mhm.
know, I don't fight anymore, but you and I are still, fantastic friends and haven't seen each other in years,
Years, yeah.
and that will never ever change. That,
Mhm.
our relationship as friends will never ever change, just because we're either not fighting anymore or whatever,
Yeah.
and and it shouldn't change. You can still go out and you can still do all kinds of stuff in the SCA. Just don't be afraid to stop fighting if it's the right time. If it's the right time, and choose the time. You choose the time to stop. Don't stop when somebody else says, like, "Oh, you got to fight for 2 more years because you could get better and better." Say, I don't want to fight 2 more years. I'm good. I'm good. You know, I'm good with this. But yeah, great
Excellent.
talking to you, man.
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
too. Very well said. I don't think I could top it. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, hope you enjoyed this conversation, and we'll catch you on the next show. All right. So